This is something I felt really passionate about ever since I got into alternative clothing, like punk and goth clothing, when I was in my mid to late teens. And it's about only buying clothes that feel really special to you and that carry meaning for you. So buying clothes that you think you're going to continue to care about, rather than buying clothes that you're going to get bored of really quickly and that are going to be probably thrown in the back of the wardrobe. In a lot of ways, when it comes to clothes, we are living in a throwaway culture. So we're living in a culture where it's normal to buy things and keep buying, to buy things that we don't really care about, that we don't really get our use out of, and that don't really feel like they matter. So just buying for the sake of buying because we like the act of the buying. We like how that makes us feel. The amazing thing is that we don't actually have to be part of that. And what that means is that we need to buy clothing that means something to us, clothing that feels special. The way I see it, our clothing habits have to change. And that doesn't just mean buying less. And I'm going to explain why. Because I think that if you just approach it in terms of buying less, then it's not going to be enough for you to keep at that. What we need to change is the way that we think about it. It has to be a mindset change. It has to be looking at it in a different way. Because if we don't, like, I just feel like it's, it's just sort of like a ticking clock. And, eventually we're just going to give up on it. So what I mean by not just buying less, is that I think that we need to actually change what we're buying. So rather than just saying to ourselves, okay, I'm going to keep going out and buying things, on sale. Not that there's anything wrong with buying things on sale, but I'm going to keep going out, buying the same kind of things, even though I know that I don't really value them and that I get bored of them really, really quickly. But I'm going to keep going out buying the same kind of things, but I'll just try to do it less. And that's where I think things wouldn't work out, because we haven't changed the way we think about it. And if we've not changed the way that we think about it, we've not really changed how we feel about it. And so it's just something that's not going to last. If we want to make this change, so if we want to make this transition to buying clothes that means something that we're going to keep for longer, then that means understanding why we're doing what we might be doing now. So if you're going out and you're buying loads of things and then you don't really care about them and you never wear them, I think it's important to understand why you might be doing that. And some of the reasons are because we like how it makes us feel. But what we really enjoy is the actual buying. So we're doing it for the fun of the buying and the thrill of it and the way that makes us feel when we make the purchase. We're doing it for the buying itself rather than for the actual thing. Another thing we have to take into account is why we might get this kind of thrill. So one of the things that happens when we spend a lot of money on something, or when we spend a decent amount of money on something, is that it causes us pain. It causes us, it's in a way, it's almost like it causes us emotional pain. And I think there have been some studies done on this, although don't quote me. But it causes us pain because we feel that we're sort of giving up part of our, we're giving up part of our money, and we can feel that. And so if we buy something that's on sale and really cheap, so something that we maybe don't really care about, we don't realize at the time necessarily that we don't care about it. We see it, we think it looks nice, it looks pretty, and we think, oh, look, isn't this great value? It's quite nice, it's pretty, it's on sale, look, it's only however many pounds, it makes sense just to pick it up. And so you get a thrill of getting something new. You get to get something new without any pain, because it's so cheap that you've not really had to think about it. when you buy something that you really want, I think the feeling is different. For me, it's different. It's still a really good feeling. And of course, it depends on the context. So it depends on whether you've saved up for it, whether you've seen it in the moment and you know that you really want it, you've only seen it that day, or whether it's something that you've known about for a long time and you've waited, or you've bought it online, or you've bought it in the shop. That there are so many different things that could impact how you might feel, but I still think that the feeling can be quite different. It's not necessarily the same thrill, especially because you know that maybe you spend at least a little bit more on it, so there might be that kind of pain factor, like, oh, I know that I'm giving up a little bit to do this, and so you're not necessarily going to get the same thrill, especially if you've thought about it and it's something that you've really considered and you've been, working up to it and you've really thought it through. I think that the feeling, I don't know, it might not be, but I think that the feeling might be different. Certainly, it's not something that you're going to experience as often, because the idea is that you're going to spend a little bit more on each piece, but buy much less frequently because you're buying for a different reason. The good feeling isn't coming from the buying, the purchasing of the thing. What you want is, yes, to feel good when you buy it, but that's not the point. What you want is to feel good every time you see it in your wardrobe, right? You want it to be a more continuing feeling, because otherwise, one of the other issues is that otherwise, if you're buying things just because you enjoy the thrill of the purchase, then it means that you have to keep doing it. Because if it's not about the thing and it's only about the buying, then you have to keep buying. So if you want to feel good about buying pieces that mean something to you, then it really has to be about the piece. So you want that good feeling every time you see it, every time you see it in your wardrobe, and every time you wear it. So then we have to ask ourselves, what does a piece have to be in order for us to keep wearing it? So I think, obviously it depends on you, it depends on the person, and I think it can be different for everybody. But I think that it has to say something about you. So that doesn't mean that it has to be crazy unique. I know that my style tends to be a bit eccentric and it tends to be pretty creative, and those are just the kind of things that I like to wear and that expresses me. But that doesn't mean that your pieces have to be really individual looking or anything like that. But I think it does mean that it has to mean something to you, whatever that's going to take. One of the things that I think helps is if it's of a certain quality. That does not mean that it has to be designer or anything like that, but it just means that I think it has to be, not particularly fast fashion, and it just has to be something that's of decent quality, or just something that you're more likely to keep wearing. And I think decent quality definitely helps with that. And then the second question is, how do we make sure that we don't end up buying things that we wear more, but then buying at the same frequency, which could end up costing us a hell of a lot more than we want to spend? So how do we make sure that we do buy things that we care about more, but that we also buy less? And I think we do that by just changing our whole attitude to clothing and to the reason why we're buying. So we have to remember that we're buying for the thing because of how we care about the thing. So it's about how the thing makes us feel, not just in that moment, but after the period of time when, after we step out of the shop as well. And it's not about the buying experience. That's what we have to remember, that it's about the thing and how we feel about the thing, and that it's not about the buying experience. Also, please remember at this point that I'm not saying that we should spend a fortune on clothes. That's not in any way what I'm saying. It's about not buying things that are cheap, that we don't really care about, because it's easy and because there's no pain to it. If you're someone who finds buying quite addictive, then you can end up, if you're spending £8 here and £10 here and, £15 here and another £5 here, that builds up really quickly. If you're doing that regularly because you really like the experience of the buying, then that actually can build up very quickly if you're doing that regularly. Whereas if you can move out of that, and if you can stop buying for the sake of the thrill that you get when you buy, then and you're only buying for the actual thing, and you're paying a little bit more for each piece, but you're buying much less frequently, then I think you can actually find yourself saving money. So remember, it's not about breaking the bank at all. It's, you definitely have to be careful with your money when it comes to buying clothes. It's just about not trying to buy things that are so cheap that you don't care about them and that they just never get worn. One of the things we can do to sort of check whether or not we really want something is wait. We can just wait. Rather than buying it in the moment, I think it can be a really good test as to how much we want something. If we're prepared to hold back, not go for the buy in the moment when we see it, hold back and wait even until the next day. I'm kind of a big advocate really for waiting longer than that. Maybe give it a week and see how you feel. And I think that if it's something that you just want because it's on sale and you know that you can buy it really easily, then sometimes if you've seen several of those things, you're often not even going to remember what it was, by that evening or the next day. I'm sure some of you have experienced that. I think most of us have experienced that where we've seen something and been like, oh, look how cheap that is. That's amazing. And we're trying to decide whether or not to get it. And if we don't get it, often the next day, we can't even really remember it. We can't even really remember what it was specifically or what it looked like. So I think waiting, either saving up for something a little bit or just waiting, a day or a week or a few weeks, and then just seeing how you feel, whether it's still something that feels like, that obviously something that's in budget, but that still feels like, something that you really want, then you can make the decision. And, if you can afford it and it makes sense, then you can just go back and get it. You hear the expression a lot, things are just things. And I think that's very true. And we have to remember that at the end of the day, they are just things. And, if you miss buying something because it's gone or whatever, or, it's not the end of the world. So it's true that things are just things. But I also believe that we should value everything that's in our world. And I think that should include the clothes that we wear. If you liked the video, then I'd love you to leave me a comment, or you can go onto my Instagram. I'll leave my handle down there. I love you to follow me on Instagram. And also, if you'd like to see more of my videos, then please hit the subscribe button, and I will see you soon.